We are back. It's another end of another year. I'm joined here with Ryan Nidek, Montgomery County Teenage Republicans Chairman, and coming around the corner is the College Republicans Chair and from University of Chicago and Montgomery County native Matthew Foldy. Today we got an interesting show. We're going to go over years, but before we get started, let's just so how's Illinois? How's the campaign you were working on? A lot of it didn't work out the way you wanted it to.
Well, Maryland re-elected Hogan with probably enough votes to spare to allow Governor Rauner to win a second term in Illinois, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So Illinois' short-term political future is definitely up for question. It's going to be a fun time in Illinois, but I think for me it's too cold to stay there for that much longer. So it's nice to be back home in Montgomery County with the best governor in the country here. So it's good to be back.
Ryan?
Well, here in Maryland, we did have huge accomplishments in re-electing Governor Hogan, despite the blue wave that did end up occurring. But it's really unfortunate that efforts to win seats in the state legislature were not successful, because that really limits Governor Hogan's ability to be successful in the second term and accomplish more of his agenda. And I think that we're seeing a state legislature or a general assembly that's moving even further to the left than it's ever been, and that could have very disastrous consequences for the state, especially since the governor's veto.
But yet it could be really good for us in 2022, because Democrats are already saying Ben Jealous was not liberal enough.
Well, if we get single-member districts, I think there's a huge opportunity in the House of Delegates. I know this cycle, the focus was on the state Senate because we only needed 5 seats, but I mean, with single-member districts, there's even in Montgomery County, we'll have House of Delegates seats that are Republican seats.
And we will have, it'll be much easier to get another Republican elected in 4 years if they decide to go to the left of Ben Jealous, which I think they will, because Democrats.
I mean, that is possible, but on the other hand, we did lose a lot of our bench with Steve Shue
Yes, we
and
did.
Alan Kittleman's
Yes, we
defeat,
did.
both of their defeat as county executives.
True. But just because Steve Shue lost, I don't think that negates him from ever running for governor again. Because if you remember, Governor Hogan lost his congressional race. Well, actually, he won it, then they stole it in '92 when he ran against Steny Hoyer. And he came back, now he's the governor. I can see Steve Shue. Steve Shue's a businessman, county executive. Right now he's headed up the Opioids Commission. He could rebuild, and he could be a strong candidate in 2022. Then there's Kelly Schultz, who, if she runs, I think she is the front runner. And then, there's others, Barry Glassman, and there's a whole bunch of other people that will probably consider running. And this has been an amazing year. My friend Congressman King, he held on to his seat. I know the unions targeted him heavily. And then we got these fabulous races around the country. We picked up a Senate seat in Florida with Rick Scott, and we picked up the governorship, held the governorship, I should say, in Florida with Ron DeSantis. And full disclosure, I was a Putnam guy, but I think Andrew Gillum basically united the Republicans really fast the day after elections when he called Ron DeSantis a racist. Well, now let's get down to our right here. We're doing our annual year-end awards. This has been inspired by the McLaughlin Group, where John McLaughlin will go around the year and come up with awards. So let's start with you, Matthew. Best campaign for 2018 and why?
So I would say the best campaigns of this cycle would go to Will Hurd, Brian Fitzpatrick, and John Katko, for the simple fact that they are now the only 3 Republicans in the House to represent districts that Hillary Clinton won in 2016. So for their sheer ability to withstand all of the surface level forces going against them, and Will Hurd barely eking out a victory, I think that they deserve that for sure.
Ryan?
I'm going to go more local here in Maryland and say that Mary Beth Crozat on the Eastern Shore, she's one of the only 2 Drive for 5 races which came out victorious from all the others. I mean, she was helped by being in a more predominantly Republican area, but she took out
where Donald Trump won.
Well, she did, but at the same time, she did take out an entrenched incumbent, which others that ran very good campaigns in other parts of the state failed to do.
Yeah, and I would also give an honorable mention to Christian Mealy. He ran one hell of a campaign.
His campaign was excellently run. It was just, I mean, it was the wrong year.
Yeah. I hope, Christian, you run again in 4 years, and I think you'll win that seat.
Yeah.
And for my best campaign, I think this year, you got to give it to and I'm not people gonna say, "Oh, he's your friend." I think Congressman Peter King ran one hell of a campaign this year. He had all the forces were aligned against him. You had the unions, you had corruption, you had issues with the Nassau County executive. He had a whole bunch of headwinds that he fought back, and he is now back in Congress again. So I give it to my friend Congressman Peter King. You had the best campaign, I think, in my humble opinion, since probably your first run, back when yours truly was your youth director. Now, the worst campaign. I'll start with you since I gave it to Ryan.
The worst campaign. That's a really tough one. I would say the worst campaign is Ben Jealous's here in Maryland. I mean, Larry Hogan did a great job as governor, but the year we were in, no Republican was safe, no matter how popular, no matter where they were. And Ben Jealous dropped the ball at every single opportunity. And it might be unfair to say his campaign was the worst campaign, because it wasn't even the campaign, it was him. I mean, he might be the most gaffe-prone politician that I've ever seen. I mean, I haven't been alive.
Well, he was campaigning in the wrong state. Remember, he said he was running for governor of Virginia.
Oh,
Matthew, worst campaign?
I would say the worst was Joe Crowley, because unlike Ben Jealous, he couldn't even get through his primary. I think now the whole Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez phenomenon seems like it was almost inevitable. But at the time, even the New York Times was barely giving her any coverage, and that was in their own backyard. So for him to have lost that race, especially in Illinois when Dan Lipinski won his primary that had some of the similar dynamics going on, I think I would have to give him worst campaign of the year.
I will agree with you on Joe Crowley. I agree. He had, the fact that he couldn't win. This is an incumbent, entrenched Democrat. He could not beat this newbie Asiago Cortez, and she was and I think the Democrat Party has done a fundamental lurch to the left. These people are not even Bill Clinton's Democrats. That's how far to the left they are. I was talking to a couple of Democrats, and they're saying how, we need to get rid of the Clintons. They have ruined this party. We are the party of Bernie Sanders. So, I mean, it's good news for us if we're going to be going up against the out-of-the-closet socialists on the Democrat side. Now, let's see. Who would you say is destined this year, who basically is going to go into political oblivion after 2018? Had their 10 minutes of fame, 15 minutes of fame. Matthew?
So I think that is hard to say, because even just in the past week, we've seen that losing elections doesn't necessarily negate your even short-term career future, with Martha McSally being appointed to the Senate seat in Arizona after she lost, and Beto O'Rourke now polling almost as a front-runner for Democrats for 2020. So I think it's hard to say, just because 2018 looked bad for you, that you're heading towards a political oblivion. I think it's tough to predict something like that.
But I'll tell you who is. Go. Actually, I'll let you say that. I'll give you my pick.
well, my answer here is our incoming Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, because I think while she is going to be our Speaker of the House, I do not think she has any control over her caucus. They've just moved too far to the left, and I think that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and people of her nature are the people who really are going to represent the Democrat Party. Nancy Pelosi is going to have very little influence, I think, over at least the messaging coming out of the caucus.
Very true.
Well, I will say it'll be interesting to see what happens to Seth Moulton after his attempt to not have Pelosi be Speaker completely failed entirely. Now he might be getting challenged by a Democrat in the primary next cycle because of his work to try and stop Pelosi.
Excellent choices, but I think political oblivion, Ben Jealous. He is going nowhere. I know he's had his 15 minutes of fame, and I think he's going to go into oblivion, even though the Maryland Democratic Party threw out Kathleen Matthews, Mrs. Hardball, as the chair, and a lot of those Democrats are blaming Kathleen Matthews for the loss and saying how Ben Jealous was too centrist to win. If he was just more liberal, if he had just given more free stuff, maybe offer free Nintendos and Xboxes,
And I don't think it can be understated how much of a strategic mistake it was for the Democrats to get rid of Kathleen Matthews as their chair. I mean, the Drive for 5 from the Maryland GOP was a very well orchestrated effort, and because of, I mean, Ben Jealous just could not win. He was such a terrible candidate. That's not her fault, but it was her work at the Maryland Democrat Party that helped avert a Maryland Republican not takeover, but breaking of the supermajority in the state Senate, and I think that is possibly the most important thing that they did this election, and they got rid of her for someone again further to the left. The party is lurching further and further that direction.
Lurching very far to the left. Pay attention, Democrats. You might learn something. Our rising star, Ryan.
Rising star. No, I'll go back to Maryland again. I think Larry Hogan. I think that in a year when Republicans did not do good, especially in suburban areas, especially in blue areas, and that seems to be the trend that it doesn't look good for us going down the road. He's shown a model for Republicans to win in areas where we need to win in order to stay a national party, in order to stay a competitive party. And I think, if not him, his brand of Republicanism has a big room to grow going forward.
Absolutely. Matthew?
Obviously, I love Hogan, but I'd say his star has already been there from before 2018. So I would say for someone who no one had heard of before, even a few months ago, would be Dan Crenshaw for winning his primary to begin with when he was definitely not the favored candidate. And then the way that he's managed to parlay being insulted on SNL into the sort of the leader that he is, I think that there's a lot of exciting stuff to come from him down the road.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree, and I think he's a really great ambassador for conservatism. Especially, he shows you don't really have to moderate your positions in order to. It's all about tone. You can present it in a way that's more favorable without sacrificing what you believe in.
I will say our rising star is currently the Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Dan Forest. Dan Forest, I heard him speak for the first time a couple years ago when I was at the North Carolina State Republican Party Convention. Dan Forest is presidential timber. He is going to be the next governor of North Carolina. He's going to bring back the governor's mansion. After Governor McCrory was defeated 2 years ago, he's up in 2 years, 2020. Go Dan, go Dan. Dan Forest, remember the name. Dan Forest is probably going to run for president one day. And he is a well-spoken, well-articulated. He reminds me of a young Ted Cruz or a Marco Rubio in his speech.
Oh, they're both young.
Yes.
Even younger.
Yes, younger. Actually, they're probably about the same age, actually. So I give it to Dan Forest as the rising star. Watch, he's going to make mincemeat of the current governor of North Carolina in the debates coming up, and he is going to be, great for the country, great for the state of North Carolina, and that's my rising star. I love you guys' rising. Let's see. The biggest surprise of 2018, Matthew.
So there was one nice surprise on election night when CNN had predicted that Illinois Congressman Rodney Davis was going to lose. They then had to retract that call in their only retraction of election night. So it was great. That was nice that happened. But then I would say the two other big surprises were how in every single day after election day, all of the ballots that came in were just so for Democrats, which was just terrible for us. And then what I think is interesting here that surprised me while not being in Maryland while this was happening was that Jealous was able to so convincingly win the primary and then not unify Democrats at all and then go down in flames, really, for the general election. So he convincingly won the primary and then just squandered everything through a terrible campaign. So that was surprising to me. Maybe it shouldn't have been.
Ryan?
In terms of biggest surprise, I think it's that, well, thankfully we did end up winning that race. I think how close Beto O'Rourke came to Ted Cruz in Texas. I really thought that was overblown, how much people were hyping up his campaign. But the final margin, Cruz only won by 2.6 points, which for Texas, I mean, that's scary for the future.
That is a surprise.
That someone could come back close to Ted Cruz. And that was the biggest surprise for me on election night. And I think that's something we really have to look at as the Republican Party going forward. Because if we lose Texas, I mean, you can't.
Yeah, I know. We were lucky to win Florida. Florida, they do a lot of. We joke about how Baltimore, there's always boxes of ballots that just show up after the polls close, after they call the election for the Republican. Remember 1994? Neither of you guys were around for that, but Ellen Sauerbrey was declared the winner, and then the next morning, all these boxes of ballots, they just seemed to forgot to count.
Will of the Broward County election administrator.
I would say Brenda Snipes is destined for political oblivion because
Yes.
even the Democrats in Florida were just saying, "Get rid of her. This is an embarrassment to us."
You know, she has an uncanny, striking resemblance to Lieutenant Commander Uhura from Star Trek. I forget the lady that plays her, but she had because I saw something on Facebook and I go, "What's Commander Uhura doing in Florida?" And then I look and it said Brenda Snipes. I think I just insulted the gal that plays. Oh, I forgot her name. That plays Lieutenant. But the biggest surprise I have for 2018 is the fact how the Democrats, yes, they took the House, but they got like, what is it, 38 seats, Ryan, the Democrats have now? A 38 seat majority?
Oh, I believe so.
But if you compare that to the Republicans in 94 and the Republicans in 2010, it is a small win. They didn't get it. They didn't get that. This was not a wave. It was more like a trickle. A wave is when you pick up 68 seats like the Republicans did in 2010. So the biggest surprise is, I think we all were bracing for a bigger loss on election night, and the fact that it took till 2 a.m. before they declared the House is going to go Democrat. And I think despite all the funny business the Democrats did, we saw it in Florida with the Ron DeSantis race where he won. Gillum conceded, then he unconceded. It kind of reminded me of Al Gore in 2000. Rick Scott won, and his opponent again did not concede. And I think the biggest one is the Kemp race in Georgia, where Kemp won. And I don't think his opponent, she has yet to concede. And she had all the star power behind her. She had Oprah knocking on doors for her. She had, she had a bunch of people knocking on doors. And we held on. We still have majority of the governorships in the country. It was not as bad as, the fact that CNN and MSNBC folks were really glum the next morning, just is kind of echoes my point of, they didn't have a big a win as they thought they did. So that's my biggest surprise. The Democrats only won 38 seats. I think, and I will go out there and I'll say I think we're going to pick back the House back in 2 years because I think they're going to overreach. They've already started to overreach. So biggest surprise of 2018 for me, I'd say, is that how few number of seats the Democrats won in their so-called Wade election. So
I would like to welcome to the broadcast watching the broadcast. An MCGOP rising star just moved here from Texas, Nick Allman.
Hey Nick, how you doing?
That could be a great asset to the MCGOP
Absolutely.
going forward.
Hello, Nick.
Hey.
Okay, next category we have is best campaign website for 2018. Ryan?
Oh, best campaign website.
Yes.
Okay, so this is tough because I can't give one that's designed by myself.
No, you could if it's the best.
Yeah.
I think that the Maryland GOP's website, I don't know if that really qualifies as a campaign website, but I think their website, just the theme and the layout and how they incorporated the video and moving elements into the background without really creating any lag was really impressive and it really captivated the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do my best and worst.
Uh-huh.
I think every candidate in 2018 needs a professionally designed website that
Absolutely.
has all of the features that you would expect on a campaign
Hire
website.
this guy.
Yeah, so I'm not. I actually, I'm a little biased because I'll talk about one that, not that I designed, but that was on the Rauner campaign. But and the worst campaign website is any campaign that does not have a fully functional, professional-looking website. That's not geared at anyone in particular, but if you don't have a good website, then you need to really re-examine your campaign priorities. But so the best web. So again, I'm sort of assuming that every candidate has a good website, which I know is not a fair assumption, but assuming that a new-ish thing in the past couple of years is microsites where you have a specific website for a specific message that you're pushing. So in Illinois, our Democratic opponent, J.B. Pritzker, had serious issues with plumbing. He removed toilets from one of his mansions. So he has two mansions right next door to each other in Chicago. the one he lives in, and then the other one. So he removed all the
Does he
toilets.
put
from the
illegals
one.
in the other house? Does he keep all the illegals that he gives?
No.
to the other one?
He removed all the toilets from his other house, and then declared it uninhabitable so he could claim a property tax deduction on his main house that for a long time we were saying was over $200,000 that it saved him. But then the Cook County Inspector General, who's a Democrat, their report was leaked that showed the actual total was $330,000 that JB had saved and that he had engaged in, and this is their words, a scheme to defraud county taxpayers through lying to the inspectors and through false affidavits, so it was potential mail fraud. And
I think he's going to be another long list of Illinois governors that go to jail.
well, we'll see. But Illinois obviously sends a lot of their governors to prison. But the website that we did was pritzkerplumbing.com, and we furthered that message in a lot of ways. So we had Pritzker Plumbing shirts that we sold on the website. We had Pritzker Plumbing bumper stickers. We had a Pritzker Plumbing van that we drove around the state. During the Illinois State Fair, we did a scavenger hunt. This was one of my tasks that included Pritzker Plumbing. So we would follow JB around some of his events with toilets. And so it was a really good way to push that message of him just being sort of playing by a different set of rules than regular taxpayers who can't afford a second mansion, afford to disconnect the plumbing, and then lie about that to claim a tax break. So that was my favorite website of 2018.
For me, I think I've got two that were really good sites, and it's not Congressman King's. He's actually one of the. He probably for a multi-term congressman from Nassau County. Congressman, please get a better website. Your site sucked. But the best website I'd have to say was Ron DeSantis' site. They had issues by counties. It was a great site, aesthetically appealing. Had all the information right there, dynamic content. Like you go to some sites, they have the same event. They have like one event posted on there, and it's like from 6 months ago. That's not really good for you. For running for office, that's not the best thing to do. I think the other thing that made it really well was I think the way they tied in, you could do RSS feeds to your own personal website. If you want to have RSS feeds from the DeSantis campaign, you could just do the really simple syndications and get them to pop out on your social media or Twitter. And they used Twitter effectively. They used Facebook and Facebook Live, which is great because a lot of campaigns really were not using Facebook as effectively. In Maryland, the only person who really I think used Facebook Live the best was Christian Mealy. He really did a great job with Facebook Live. But the DeSantis campaign also used Instagram very well. Like when he would go to events around the state of Florida, he'd pictures with people with Instagram. They'd be right up with it. People like seeing themselves on the net and stuff like that. I've already said my worst site. That is Congressman Peter King. You won re-election. Maybe I'm wrong, but and if you want to have the very worst site, is the Nassau County GOP's website. They really need a facelift. Ryan, I think you need to contact Nassau County GOP. Tell them that the 1990s are calling and they want their website back.
Okay.
So your worst site.
I'm actually going to plead the fifth on this one because there's some websites in Montgomery County I'd like to point out that I'm not allowed to. So.
Okay. Well, you can point out some others. There's other sites, around the state that are really bad that you can point out to. There's a certain candidate in Baltimore County that had a hideous website.
We don't need to go there.
Okay. Fair enough, Ryan. I know you're young. Let's see. I need my old man glasses. Biggest winner of 2018.
I would say tough to tell right now, but for now I would say Mitch McConnell keeping the Senate majority with a large enough margin that he can get, in terms of nominations, basically anyone he wants through without too much difficulty.
No more Jeff Flake.
So short term, I think he definitely is well situated coming out of 2018.
Ryan?
Okay, so you stole my answer, so I'm gonna have to think of one on the fly here.
Okay.
Biggest winner of 2018, I would say it's the left wing of the Democrat Party, not because their strategy is going to be successful, but because they've taken control of their party, I think.
Mm-hmm.
it used to be an establishment-controlled party. The moderates were really in charge, but the left wing was just trying to pull them to the extremes on certain issues. But now, the left wing runs the show.
The children of Bernie Sanders.
I mean, that's scary for this
Well,
country.
his child actually was crushed in his bid for Congress this year in New Hampshire.
And this is as the Reverend Jeremiah Wright would say, the Democrats' chickens are coming home to roost.
Sure.
Biggest winner of 2018, I want to say, is probably, I'll give it to Ronna Romney McDaniels, the RNC chair. She did a phenomenal job. And first of all, building that red flood wall against the blue wave, which turned into a trickle. Yes, we lost the House, but we grew in the Senate. We have the majority of the governorships. We still have the majority of the state legislators. And Ronna did a great job as RNC chair. She gets all the credit along with the NRCC and the Republican Senatorial Committee. They all get the credit.
RGA.
Yeah, RGA too. Yes, RGA. Can't forget the RGA. They get the credit for, I know it sounds bad, but for cushioning the House loss that it's not as bad as the Democrats had lost in 2010. I know. And let's see. Now we've got the biggest loser of 2018.
Okay, so
Ryan?
the biggest loser of 2018.
Yeah, this could be organizations or anything like that.
I would say the biggest loser. I'll give the opposite answer. My biggest winner. It's the moderate Democrats, the people like Mike Miller, Mike Bush, who are the establishment Democrats who no longer have control of their own caucus.
Mm-hmm.
Those people, Mike Miller and Mike Bush ran Annapolis pretty much forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then, now...
Cheryl Kagan may challenge him for leadership.
I haven't heard that one, but I wouldn't be surprised. You never know what she
You
has
had a
to
running
say.
with Cheryl Kagan.
Oh.
What she was very proud of young people being Republican.
Oh yes, that did happen. But Cheryl Kagan told me that I'm too young to be a Republican. But even more interesting is when Doug Gansler got into a Twitter feud with the Quince Orchard Teenage Republicans and was mentioned in the media for basically fighting with a bunch of teenagers online.
That is the funniest thing when you have these 50-year-old, 45-year-old politicians that pick fights with high school kids.
Yeah, and
stand up to those bullies.
Doug Gansler's got an interesting history of high school kids.
I know.
His big gaffe was the party.
He likes to party with them.
Yeah.
That's it, your biggest loser?
So, like with Oblivion, I don't have an easy answer for this just because who knows, today's loser may totally manage to turn things around. So I have no idea. I think there's a lot of people who could be total losers in this year, but who will, within 6 weeks, turn it around, have their own podcast or whatever, and manage
Anyone can do a podcast these days.
Right, exactly.
Look at us.
I know. But I think that now, like if you lose and you end up being worse off for it, that actually says a lot about you, because so many people who have lost have managed to turn that into something at least decent
Yes.
for them. So if you lose an election this year and then you sort of let that be the end of you, then that would be more telling than anything else. So I don't have a specific person.
My biggest loser is going to go to, and it's because of the Democrats taking over the House. I think it's going to be the American farmer, because the Democrats are going to try and ramrod. Thank God we got President Trump in the White House, and the EPA is controlled by the right people, but I don't put it past Congress. They're going to put all these regulations in that's going to hurt farmers across the Midwest. And I feel bad but I think because the Democrats are in control, they're going to use their environmental hocus pocus mumbo jumbo to regulate farms to the point where it's going to drive small family farms out of business.
Yeah. And Nick just chimed in and said Bill Nelson. He nominates Bill Nelson.
Hey, good choice, Nick.
Well, he might be done.
Loser of the year. I don't see him making a comeback, hosting a podcast.
You never know.
Doesn't seem very
Bill
charismatic.
Nelson.
It'd be like, what's Jim Mathias hosting a podcast? Never going to happen.
I'm
Not
Bill
very
Nelson.
charismatic.
I think Nelson and Mathias, that's going to be the podcast. It'll be like the McNeil Lear Report, the show before both of your times. Two old guys on PBS, And that's what it would be. Bill Nelson and Jim Mathias, the podcast.
It'll be like two old grouches in the Democrat
Like
Party.
on the Muppets. Do you guys remember the Muppets, or is that before your time too?
No, I know the Muppets.
They had two critics in the balcony.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That's gonna.
Hey, see, that's what I'm saying. You know, they may very well be able to pull that off.
Yeah, they'll become Muppets and.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
That might be an
Okay.
improvement for them. Let's see. We are. Let's see.
Best political news site.
Yes, best political news site for 2018. Matthew.
So for the Rounder team, we had a political newsletter that we put together basically every morning, compiling all of the news from the state. And by the end, we were doing it almost 3 times a day. But I think that the Chicago Tribune, Politico Illinois, and this Illinois blog, Capital Facts, were the best. They were not always as critical of JB as we would like, but all in all, I was able to learn basically between those 3 outlets and then other ones like the Chicago Sun-Times, there was almost nothing that happened in Illinois that I was not kept appraised of. So for them helping me make sure I was doing my job effectively, I give it to them.
Right?
I'm going to go more national and say the National Review. I know they're used to be primarily a magazine. Now I anticipate most of their readership is online.
Yep.
I think they just provide very good, it's much less of timely news of everything that's happening and much more intellectual and intelligent takes on what's going on and the conservative reaction to that. And I think it's a very good thing for conservatives to read.
I will say the best political news site is Tucker Carlson's website.
Daily Caller.
Daily Caller, yeah. I think that is the best. It's most informative. They break news, and as we've seen, Tucker doesn't take crap from lefties who try to boycott his show. So he goes to Tucker Carlson, and the Daily Caller website, I think, is the best news site that we had in 2018. Which moves us to our worst political news site, the absolute worst, where they had yellow journalism almost. And I'll start this one off because this is my favorite. I will give it to the New York Times and Washington Post. The worst news that was fit to print was found there. They were wrong probably over 50% of the time in 2018. Washington Post, New York Times, as my friend Sparkplug would say, they've got OLD stage 6. We just need to bury the gray ladies of news media. Ryan?
So I agree 100% with your answer, but I'll go even more specific to a particular story where both have been botched. I forget who broke the story, but not the first Kavanaugh accusation, but the subsequent ones after that. You had one, the credibility it goes back and forth, but it was a legitimate accusation that was to be taken seriously.
Absolutely.
Then you had
Absolutely.
some of the people that came forward that were the Michael Avenatti people that he was propping up, and it was just those should not have received any coverage. They should not have been taken seriously. But there was such a desperation to take down Brett Kavanaugh that they would take anything. I could have called in and said Brett Kavanaugh assaulted me 50 years ago, and they probably would have printed it on the front page of the New York Times.
So you two give it to the OLD, the OLD sufferers, the New York Times and Washington Post. See, Sparkplug, we're thinking of you.
Jason.
Go ahead.
Oh, Jason Burton, your friend Dwight, just left a comment. Dwight, hit me up. Let's get the site started again. We need another Webby site for this purpose.
I guess we do. We can do that, Jason. Jason is a developer who works for me over the years, and he's out in Michigan.
Well,
And
that'd be better than some of these other websites we were
Yeah.
talking about.
so,
Sorry, Matt, I interrupted.
worst political news site.
I would say I didn't really have too much sour grapes from what I was dealing with this cycle. I think it was all fair. Illinois was very negative on both candidates, so I didn't feel.
Am I hearing CNN?
No, I would say actually, especially towards the end, Pritzker was getting far more negative coverage than we were, deservedly, because he was a far worse candidate than we were. But no, by and large, I think, especially seeing like the behind the scenes of how stories are covered, I thought the reporters who covered us, they were definitely trying to do their best. I think by and large did a very good job, whether or not we were happy with the outcome that went public or not.
Okay, and let's see. We are at almost the end of our broadcast. we've got Person of the Year, Ryan.
Person of the Year. Let's think. I will nominate for Person of the Year. Let me give a few. I'll give 3 people. For Person
Okay,
of the Year.
sure.
Rick Scott for taking out Bill Nelson.
Rick Scott. Okay.
Ron DeSantis, again, because what we did in Florida this time, I think the benefits of it cannot be overstated.
Absolutely.
Not just heading into 2020, but beyond.
We took out a corrupt mayor.
All the bad stuff that's happening in Texas, Florida's moving in the right direction. That's very good for
My
us.
home away from home.
And then I'll throw in, of course, Larry Hogan. I mean, impressive. Got to support the hometown.
Home team, yeah.
Yeah.
Matthew.
I'd say Larry Hogan too. I'm biased.
Yeah, I'll agree. Larry Hogan is, Larry Hogan, he gets a lot of criticism from some of our friends, some of our enemies, but, here's something. Guys, he's the governor, a 2-term governor. We haven't done this since Governor McKeldin.
Yes.
And Governor McKeldin, somebody needs to write this book. I hope Lee Annis is watching. He should do a book on McKeldin and Hogan. The similarities are uncanny. Governor McKeldin, Beltway, the 2 beltways, the BW Parkway. He was a roads governor. Governor Hogan, a roads governor.
Is there going to be a library at UMD named after Hogan?
I hope so. I say let's rename Hornbeck to the Hogan Library. Let's do it now. Let's just do it. While we control the purse strings to the University of Maryland. But Governor McKeldin, Governor Hogan, a lot of similarities. People should really do some research on them. Just like Governor Hogan, Governor McKeldin was instrumental in all of our major... Actually, if you look at Maryland, all of our great leaps forward happened under Republican governors. You had Governor Goldsboro, who was responsible for the University of Maryland College Park. And the scary thing is the Democrats opposed Republican governors for every one of these initiatives. Can you imagine the state of Maryland without University of Maryland and College Park? Or without the Bay Bridge, or without BWI Airport?
Or without the ICC.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Governor Ehrlich, and I know you're watching, Governor. Thank you for the ICC.
Yes.
And I think Governor Hogan, when he does, Matthew and I coming today up 270.
Yeah.
What is it? We're
disaster.
about 15 minutes away from here.
Normally,
Yeah,
I'm 17
and it
minutes
took us
away.
what, 45 minutes to get here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nick just pointed out in the comments as a testament to Governor Hogan's great success that he only lost 2 congressional districts. We have 1 Republican representing out of 8 seats in Congress, but
Right.
Hogan won
That's
6
true.
of the 8
That's
seats.
so unbelievable.
Which is
I saw that he
unbelievable.
won the 8th district.
Yes.
I thought. I
By
think
a
we saw the
big
same.
margin.
Did you post that today?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you sure that's true? He
No,
won.
yeah,
This
he did.
district?
He did. Yeah, I double
I
checked.
trust
Unbelievable.
Jake Shade to give
Unbelievable.
You're right.
But here's the other thing is...
I mean, that's just
No,
astonishing.
I know this is something that people may not... But I've got a way we can get 4 and 4. What we do is we take
Well, that's
Montgomery...
what we had in 18 years ago.
Yeah, we take Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Howard County, and Baltimore City. We can get creative with the pen too, just like the Democrats, and pack all the Democrats
You see,
there.
Dwight, we don't want it. We need to in a state like Maryland where
But-
we don't have the demographics. We need to win the moral argument.
Yeah.
So, I think we don't need gerrymandered districts.
No, but what I'm
With
saying
fair
is,
districts, we can get 3 seats.
if we make, we can. My way we get 4. If we put Howard County, PG County, Montgomery County, and Baltimore City, and you can actually do it wouldn't look like District 3. Or District 6 or District 8 or any other district the Democrats, with the exception of 1, because they basically just couldn't overreach there.
Well, Ben Jealous wanted to.
Yeah, he
you know,
did. Yeah.
From what I read, the fear was they thought about taking out Andy Harris, but they were worried it would create
We
a
can-
district
yeah.
that could potentially go Republican.
Yes.
It would still be a Democrat district.
Yep.
But even the chance that one of their seats,
Yeah.
their incumbents could
Here's
take
the
it
thing. In
out.
Montgomery County, all the levers of power are controlled by the Democrats. Democrats should need to really think about,
Ryan, you just did some research on the precinct level data, how Republicans
Yeah.
did in Montgomery
Okay.
County.
Other than Larry Hogan, who did very well in Montgomery County, 45% of the vote, not a single Republican candidate down the ballot won any precinct anywhere in Montgomery County. Even our Republican precincts, Democrats still won every single down ballot race at the precinct level, which is absolutely, that's astonishing. And that really shows you we're in trouble. We need to change course here in
But remember,
Montgomery
we're
County.
not in. It's not as bad as it looks. I know it looks bad, but we control city councils. We control city councils. We control around Montgomery County, Hightstown, Poolsville.
Absolutely.
Friendship
And-
Heights,
and
Chevy
you make a
Chase.
great point, and that's where we need to start rebuilding. And
We had two
yeah,
Republicans on the Kensington City Council, and unfortunately, due to some forced errors.
yeah. And, well, anyways, moving on. That's where we really need to rebuild. Is
fun
if we
being
can
a dead
build up
horse.
some Republicans at the lowest levels of government
Yes.
and build trust within communities. I think that's the way we're going to have to win in Montgomery County.
Yep, and I think here's a couple of things that we've learned. The matching fund stuff works very well. You just have to be, I think, nothing against our friend Robin Ficker. And I think one of the things I think Republican Party, or actually even Democrats, you guys need to do this. I think in Montgomery County, if you get rid of all the at-large districts, there's a lot of Democrats that would love to represent parts of the county like Damascus, but right now all of our at-large members come from Silver Spring, Maryland, Tacoma Park, I should say. Not even Silver Spring,
The Tacoma Park Trapezoid.
Exactly, and that's where they all come from. And I think if we got rid of that large district, got rid of all that larges and make them all just regular councilmanic districts, I think we'd actually get, I don't care if Democrat, Republican, we have diversity of ideas. We have Democrats or Republicans that are all not from Tacoma Park. We have Democrats but then again, Democrats all think alike. I've always said there's no difference. There's not a dime's worth of difference between a New York Democrat and a Texas Democrat. While there is a day and night difference between a New York Republican and a Texas Republican. But it would be. I think it'd be the fair thing to do, is get rid of the at-large districts altogether. Because why does Tacoma Park need all that representation on the council? And Montgomery Countyans. Here's it for fun. As a secondary sort of losers are the people of Montgomery County, the taxpayers. They elected Mark Elrick, county executive. And
David Blair losing that primary was a shame.
Yeah. And that's a
I was rooting for him from Illinois.
And that's a segue into my worst person of the year
Okay.
nomination, which was going to be Mark Elrich, because to put it shortly, welcome to Montgomery County, comrades. We're gonna
miss Ike Leggett, aren't we?
we're gonna dislike Leggett. That's hard to do.
Do you think Montgomery Countyans will feel like Virginians feel about Doug Wilder? Doug Wilder, he endorsed Bob McDonnell for governor in Virginia.
You see, here's what's going to happen: is the bottom is falling out from under Elrich's thing already. Because I went to one of his listening sessions he had during the transition, and all it was people that supported all this, that were part of all the special interest groups that supported him, asking, "We need more county funding for this program. We need more county funding for that program." 95% of the comments were about funding for something, or plastic straw bans coming to Montgomery County, or some.
But paper straws suck.
Yeah, exactly. But some crazy idea like that. And eventually, even Mark Elrich is saying we need to look at the county budget. And granted, with Rich Madalino as his budget director, I'm not too confident in the physical responsibility that's going to happen.
Is Mark going to take the ride-on bus from Tacoma Park?
Robin asked him that during the debate, and he got a standing ovation, round of applause, and Mark Elrich just sat there dumbfounded. So I don't think so.
Or he could walk, He could walk. It's not that bad of a walk or jog,
I have something.
You could do that.
Yeah.
Something I really want to say right now, but I'm not allowed to.
Okay. Matthew, worst person of the year.
I don't know. I don't really have a worst person.
Actually, worst person of the year. Yeah.
I would say most frustrating person is Mike Madigan in Illinois, the Speaker of the House. He's just such a savvy operator. It is good to be him. He's very unideological, so it doesn't matter to him what his caucus believes ideologically. He'll support whatever as long as he's there. He's now by far the longest speaker in American history of a state house. So going up against him, obviously, and then also J.B. Pritzker, was quite a task. But he prevailed, and Illinois will be the worse off as a result.
Okay. And my worst person of the year, you took my idea, Mark Elrick. Actually, Mark Elrick, you're gonna, people in Montgomery County are going to regret voting for you. It's sad when we look at people like Sidney Kramer, who was a Democrat, and Doug Duncan, who was a Democrat, and we long for them to come back
Well, because of term limits, like thank you, Robin Thicke.
Yes,
we're going to
Robin.
have a crowded Democrat primary in 2020 when
Yep.
Craig Rice and Nancy Navarro want their six-figure cushy salary as a county executive, similar slight pay raise over to county council.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be really interesting because Elrich can either try to moderate himself, which I don't really see, or he's going to try to move even further to the left to prove am the more liberal candidate against Craig Rice and Nancy Navarro, who arguably is just as liberal as Elrich, almost as liberal as Elrich. So if he's moving further to the left to counteract her, that's really scary for Montgomery County.
Well, let me tell you a quick Craig Rice story. I went to high school with Craig Rice, and Craig Rice was in our math science magnet program. Back then, he was not this crazy of a liberal. But I think when he decides to run for office, he's got to out left everyone around him. And Craig, what happened to you?
You see, how could you graduate from a math magnet and
I know.
become a Democrat councilman? Doesn't make any
Exactly.
sense.
I mean, were you not paying attention? And
It's okay.
I mean, it's like the balance sheet. It's we learned this in middle school. It all has to add up. We can't have negatives at the end. Like that math problem, by the way, that is still being debated at NASA and other places around town. But
It's scary when the federal government's contractors don't know how to use parentheses. But
well, I will tell you, there's I've actually took that question up to my quantums teacher,
yeah,
and he got 1. Because
well, that's what I got.
No, you got 9, didn't you?
Well,
I
yeah,
had
and
1.
Yeah,
then-
I know. I had 9,
Yeah.
but I put it in Wolfram Alpha and it got
Yeah.
9.
See,
so.
we did order of operation by everything in the parentheses, then multiplication, then because you put the 6
Hey,
below. But anyways, I
we're
don't-
getting into the weeds.
Yeah, nobody wants to listen about the mathematics here. If they were, they'd be watching whatever the math thing on PBS is on right now. But thank you everyone for watching. Any final thoughts, Matthew?
I'm excited for 2019.
I'm
Right.
excited for 2019, especially we have some municipal races coming up
Yeah,
in Montgomery
and,
County where we could have a little bit more excitement than usual. And I think 2020, if we have redrawn districts in Maryland thanks to the Supreme Court, or not thanks to the Supreme Court,
Neil
thanks to the lower court, it could be. And YouTube started playing a video on it. Thanks to federal courts, could be going to Supreme Court. Thanks, Brian Frosch, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
thank
that
you,
could be
Neil
ve-
Parrott, for
that could
actually
be very
getting this.
exciting.
Yeah.
He's getting into race. There's a few other people that are getting into race. That's going to be a really exciting primary. And
Yeah,
part
absolutely.
of that's going to be in Montgomery County.
Yep. But actually, honestly, if I were to redraw the district, I would take the top 4 precincts in Montgomery County that are Damascus, put those in 6, go back to the 2012 lines when Roscoe was representing the 6th district, and just call it a day. But here is...
Well, maybe President Delaney will support that.
Yes.
Yeah.
President Delaney. I can't say that without laughing. But, and I understand congratulations are in order. You're going to be a Hokie.
Yes,
We wish you were a Terrapin, a mighty Terrapin, but you're going to be a Hokie. We don't play each other in football,
Yeah.
so it's fine. My broker...
And UChicago doesn't play anyone in
Yeah.
football.
What's the U Chicago mascot?
Phil the Phoenix.
Phil the Phoenix.
Okay. So
Do you guys have a football team?
It
You're like-
exists.
no.
I
Okay,
think any of us could play on it.
Well, I thought you were like GW. GW doesn't even have a football team.
Well, we have banned it because our president had thought it was a sin and it never really recovered. Although we are the only team to ever quit the Big Ten voluntarily, and we won
You
the
could have been
first
playing the
Heisman.
Terps if you guys were still in the Big Ten.
That's been a long time.
But thank you everyone for watching. We'll probably do this again next month. Taking a look ahead of the state legislative sessions, President's State of the Union, and a lot of things that are going to be happening. Probably by then, I think I don't know. Do you guys think Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats will overreach by this time next month? I think they will.
I think the one big overreach could be if they went for Medicare for all. The messaging on that will be crucial from our side and from their side because if they botch it, we do it right. I think that's our real opportunity to gain ground in the House because it's very easy for us to sell that as the big government overreach that it is. But they can also, if we drop the ball and they manage to sell it to the people, that's very bad for this country, very bad for our party in trying to retake the House.
And here's something else also. It's easy to throw bombs off the sidelines when you're not in leadership. You're in leadership now. This is your baby, Nancy. And are they going to create any leadership positions for whatever, like they created the position of, what's his name? I can't think of the guy's name. He's the number 4. He wanted to be the whip, but they decided you can't be the whip. So he got the position of, I know Russia used to call him driving Miss Pelosi. Who's the guy's name? He's a Democrat congressman, I think from New York or something like that.
That really narrows it down.
Yeah, I know.
All right, well.
But thank you, everyone, and we'll probably be back on right before we're in the middle of the session of the Democrats when they take over Indianapolis. Thank you. I'll edit that last.